Howdy, y'all. Thank you for joining us this May the 4th.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Wisecrack Live. It's May 4th. So you know what that means. You know what that means. It's May the 4th be with you time. For some of you, that means it's time to, slander Star Wars in favor of Star Trek. But there's not a competition. That's all I'm gonna say. It's not a competition. No one has established these two as rivals except you. You did that. If you think that there's a rivalry there, you have created this rivalry. I'm going to be looking at the chat in a second, but here's what happened. In working on setting up lights and stuff today, I stared directly into this colorful light that's over near me, and I'm still seeing blurry. I'll tell you that. I have blurry vision, and I can't see very clearly because of that. So that's the reality of the situation. We got lots to talk about today. As some of you might know, there's a big strike on. So in terms of talking about our favorite televisual content, none of that televisual content is going to be created for a while because the writers are striking and not making aforementioned televisual content. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. We are going to have a screenwriter, Colby, on to talk about this from the perspective of a WGA writer, a film and TV writer who's currently on strike. What's up, everyone in the chat? Good to see you. I should have, we got where people are rating star related things. Someone has rated Stargate at the top of the list, so that's good. But nice to see everyone here in the chat today. As always, it's Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. We're doing what we do, every week, most weeks, things like that. What does it mean, Henry? I just saw this in the chat about an invalid access code.
Yeah, for the
We
watch
can just talk about it. Oh, it didn't work? Okay, let me
yeah,
try again.
the watch together link you sent me wasn't the proper share link.
Oh, I see what I did wrong. Hold on. Wow, guys, you're really getting to see behind the curtain. Okay.
Is Stargate propaganda? I'm not familiar with Stargate, but I'm seeing some talk of it in the chat.
Sorry guys, I just got a message too that there's our sales team is asking Wisecrack to do something on Transformers, maybe to get money to stay alive as a channel. Well, what's up, everyone? Oh, this is so good. I can finally see a little bit again, guys. Did that watch together link work? Awesome. So we can do all the stuff now. So yeah, guys, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Some of it interesting, some of it depressing. Depressing, why? Because we live in the world that we live in. So there's going to be depressing stuff to talk about every week, guys. Tuck in. So what's going on the channel? I always forget what videos come out right when they come out. And now I'm trying to remember what video came out on Monday. I think
Is philosophy political?
Is philosophy political? So we made a video, and this one, some of y'all really roasted us for the the changing of titles and thumbnails after the video went up. But we made a video that kind of started from this thing that some of you, and not like you, but some of like you bring up in comments a lot, which is that if we make a video and we talk about, I don't know, like politics, society, social life, inequality, material and economic issues, there'll be comments that are like, just get back to talking about normal philosophy. This is bullshit. I hate this channel now. And whenever that happens, and I've talked about this on stream before, I'm always just like, what do you guys think that philosophy is or supposed to do? So we have this video that's on kind of like, what is philosophy for, looking at the history of philosophy and how different philosophers have conceived of the role of the discipline. Part of that is political stuff. And I'll be honest, did we switch the title of the video to put political in there, hoping that it'd be spicier and would get some clicks? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Did it help? No, it didn't. What's up, Natasha? Glad you're here. Goody Dog is here. Logical Order from Ireland. We always love to have people from Ireland here. I've been getting targeted ads recently on Instagram that are like, "Do you have grandparents and great grandparents from Ireland?" Well, yes, I do. Find out how to apply for citizenship. And, I kind of always want to do that. Logan Reese is here talking about that strike summer. DT says, "Who cares about the thumbnails?" Well, I'll tell you who cares about the thumbnails. We have to care about them a lot. And recently we've learned as well, we have to care a lot about the descriptions. Like, and I know none of you read this shit, but here's why it's important because the YouTube algorithm runs through our descriptions, looks at our titles and thumbnails, all this sort of stuff, and then it sorts the content and shows it to different people. So there you go. Striving to bounce here. Mellow, Jello, oft time Lord of the Chat is here. But please do what's up, Lexa Power. Steve Hopkins, we're all just plumbers. He gets it. But if you're here, like the stream, because speaking of algorithms, when people like the stream, that's when YouTube shows it to more people. Moises says, "What's up, my dogs? What I miss? Everything. So much has happened. So much has happened." No, you haven't talked. You haven't done too much. Let's see. Melogel says, "Can you become an Ireland citizen and then adopt me so we can get health care?" Melogel, let me see what it's like to be a parent of one child, and then we can look into me adopting you. Really exciting thing today, though, and this is something I know we've all been wondering about for a while, is will Michael do an on-air taste test of the new Trader Joe's pineapple sparkling water flavor? Now, this stream is not sponsored by Trader Joe's, but that is going to happen. I'm going to, for the first time, try this. DT brought up Dome. I don't think we're getting Dome today. I just don't think we're getting Dome again. Hector brings up the changing thumbnails and titles apart for the course. Yeah. So that video came out. Watch it if you haven't. Video is coming out tomorrow. I think you guys are going to like. I'm excited about it. I think the title and thumbnail at this point involves the phrase "work sucks," and it's on why workplace culture. And we talked about workplace culture before, but it's in particular on the way in which things at work, like, oh, we got a foosball table in the office. Oh, there's kombucha on tap. Oh, we're having like a stretching yoga session. Oh, we're working on mindfulness. All this stuff that seems good, that feels maybe better than like having a dirty face in the mine shaft. But how a lot of those things are actually mechanisms that can be used to control us. So that video comes out tomorrow. If you are a patron, you're going to get it today. Quick plug for that. Our patrons do get our videos early and with no ads. So if you want to support us directly and you hate ads, if you're one of those people who are just like, you guys sell out, I can't watch you fucking sell out. Well, then just pay us $5 a month and you don't have to worry about it. Now, Dominic said, Michael, will you talk about ways to support the WGA strike as a consumer? Now, later today, so at around 12:30, back end of the stream, we have Colby Day coming on, a WGA screenwriter and striker who's gonna talk to us and can answer any questions from the perspective of a active screenwriter and union member who's a part of this right now. So I don't want to speak for those folks. Here's what I will say. I have seen some people who are not members of the WGA, who are not a part of strike activities on the internet say stuff like, oh, cancel your streaming subscriptions in solidarity, whatever. I have not seen anything like that come from, sorry, someone just said something and now I can't see it. Okay, cool. I like when some of you answer things for me when people bring them up. I mean, I'll at least touch on this quick. Sean asked, what happened to the other content on Wisecrack? Thug Notes the other day, missed stuff on the channel as well. I mean, we like to talk about money here. The simple thing is we used to make a lot more stuff that had high production budgets when there used to be easier ways to make money. On YouTube, it's harder to make money now. So we make more straightforward things, and it's simply a matter of the economics behind it. And we make things now that speak more directly to what we're interested in, to what we think the audience is interested in, that also allows us to keep our staff. So those things matter. Back to the strike stuff. So I don't know if you see someone online who isn't a part of the WGA and it's not formally from anyone involved with it, who's telling you to like cancel your Hulu or Netflix subscription, I would be pretty dubious of that. I think it's probably well intentioned, but I don't really think that's helpful. There are things you can do. I know there's various strike funds, and some of these funds, we can find links to some of these as well. But and a couple things I did post on the Wisecrack Twitter account. I'll post some more stuff later. Ah, Martin, buenos nachos. Thank you so much. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So there's various funds that you can support. Some of them are literally just to provide like food, water, drinks, snacks for people who are on the picket line, spending their days doing that. Others are to help people out to pay rent and stuff like that that are writers out of work. Now you might be thinking something like, why would I give money to Hollywood writers? They're billionaires who make money doing nothing. There's been some interesting stories recently about writers who do not make much money. There's the one example, I'm going to forget the writer's name right now, but they're featured in a New Yorker story and a few other places. But someone who was a writer on The Bear who had like negative income working on that show, and they didn't have a writer's room, and their internet went out, and they had to work out of the public library, and they couldn't even afford to get a suit to go to the WGA awards when it was nominated for stuff. So it's important to remember that like a lot of people who work in Hollywood and make stuff do not get paid a lot of money, and you would be shocked by that. I mean, I'll give you one example, and this will be the first instance of Michael's oversharing corner this week. You know that your boy loves to overshare. Um, there was an instance in the past year, for example, where I got to submit uh to a show that was being produced to give a writing sample to maybe get to work on said show. Now I did not get the job, but I realized at a certain point, because it was a mini room situation, which we can talk about this more later, if I would have taken the job writing on a TV show, I would have taken a pay decrease. Now, to be fair, friends, I do not make a lot of money. I'm not going to tell you like my salary, but I don't make a lot of money. Um, and it was crazy to me that like, wait, so if I got one of my dream jobs, not that this isn't a dream job, but if I got one of my dream jobs, I would make less money and I would only be guaranteed that money for 8 to 10 weeks. And I might just be like on my ass again. So, there you go. I don't think Nelson is here. Yeah, someone says most Hollywood writers are working class. Lexa Powers here, works in film and TV. Happy to answer any questions. So if you're in the chat, Lexa is here. Um, yeah, Alexa gets it. So, and again, so we have Lexa in the chat who's willing to answer any questions on this. We're going to watch some videos on this stuff later. And then, of course, Colby Day is coming on later in the stream, who's going to answer questions directly. Now, Husk says, I can't get myself to write my 10-page essay that I have to send by tomorrow. How's your day going? Maybe we should like give, yeah, and Alexa says this, Dominic asked this, guys. Yeah, you don't need to cancel your subscriptions to things. That's not going to do anything. Oh, where is the question? So Husk has a 10-page essay they got to send by tomorrow. How's your day going? Everyone give your best essay advice. My essay advice to Husk would be to take a little break, do a really rough outline, and then don't start from the top of the outline. Start filling in sections in like the middle of the outline so then your brain doesn't feel like you have this weight of starting at page 1 and doing like a sequential 10 pages. That would just be my advice as someone who's written a lot of essays in my day. Um, yeah, and Andrew brings up working in film TV almost always means being a permanent freelance. Um, yeah, there you go. So let's see. What should we get into? I guess we should maybe start. And I know this is kind of, on the gnarlier side, friends. Maybe we start with the Neely story and then get into some of the strike stuff from there so we can kind of keep that. Maybe we'll do the Neely stuff. We can look at that article on AI and then get more explicitly into strike stuff, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I think that would maybe be a good way to do it. So we have a couple videos and we can maybe I'll set the table and we'll start with one. Some of you might have heard of this story. And it's like this isn't a fun one, guys. So I'll try to be sensitive here. If hearing a gnarly story about someone getting murdered on a train in New York is really gonna bum you out, I would say maybe come back in 10 minutes or so. Real quick, that one accountant gave the essay advice of write what's on your brain, take a break, go back and build it. Yeah, there you go. But someone said, who wrote this stream? Listen, we're non-union here, so it is what it is. Yeah, I almost said too much, guys. I almost said too much, but then I stopped myself. Restraint is a life skill. So, whew, if you don't want to hear gnarly stuff, go away for 10 minutes and then come back. In the meantime, like the stream, which felt really gross to say in that context. But a dude named Jordan Neely was killed in New York earlier this week. It's a very dark story. A guy who's a subway performer. Now, if you don't, I don't know, live in America, if you've never been to one of the bigger cities, a pretty common thing in places like New York and Hollywood and Los Angeles is that there's people who perform in train stations, on trains, on streets, and dress up like celebrities and dance and sing and all these sorts of things to, of course, get money and donations so that they can like live and stuff like that. Now, one of these people, Jordan Neely, who I think was, and we'll watch some videos to explain this in better detail. So if I get any of this wrong, those videos will correct that. Was a Michael Jackson impersonator and performer, and had a bit of a breakdown, it seems, on a train. A breakdown of frustration because this is a person who was seemingly working his ass off to survive and had been through some gnarly shit in their life and was struggling to just like eat and survive and things of that nature. Um, when they did have this breakdown, and we'll watch some videos on this, but by all accounts, they were not, hurting a person. A former U.S. Marine put this person in a chokehold for 15 minutes and murdered them. Um, and I'm going to pivot here for a second. This does make me think in a related way. This video I saw this week, I'm sure some of you saw this online, and it was like a couple of younger women were stealing some shit out of a store. It was like a Ross or a Walmart or something like that. And this big white guy saw them stealing stuff from the store. And he was just a customer, not someone who worked at the store. And he kind of just like grabbed this woman and more or less beat the shit out of her. And I saw someone say something like this, but it does seem for a certain type, and I am going to be gender and race specific here, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like for a certain type of white dude, there's this fantasy of being the hero. I think about Mark Wahlberg, who said after 9/11 in a radio interview, if he was on that flight, it wouldn't have happened. This is a real thing, by the way. I know sometimes I make up absurd things. This is a real thing. Someone said TJ Maxx. Yeah. Um, but Mark Wahlberg said, because he was initially supposed to be on one of the flights, that it wouldn't have happened on his watch. I think a lot of tough guy white dudes have these fantasies about like vigilante justice. But here's the thing. If you're in a store and someone's shoplifting and you apprehend them, here's what you're doing. You're being an unpaid security guard for a multinational billion-dollar corporation that doesn't give two shits about you. Like, it doesn't benefit you at all. You'll notice that if you've ever been in a store, like a grocery store, especially a national chain where someone is stealing, yeah, Logan Reese says cowboy myth shit. Um, if you're in a grocery store and someone is stealing, the employees don't do anything. You know why? A, they're normally trained not to. B, why am I going to put myself at risk when I make $15 an hour working at, the Vons, the Rite Aid, the Jewel Osco, the Publix, wherever you are in the country? I don't know. But there's no point of doing this. Yet there's a certain type of, again, I'm going to say mostly dude, who is just waiting for the moment that they can let out an internalized aggression and violence that they believe is just, and they just need the right situation to express this horrific violence. Again, I think about George Zimmerman here, who murdered Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman in Sanford, Florida, was just like driving around and like sees a black kid eating Skittles and is like, yes, here is my chance to find a way to justifiably unleash a horrifically oppressed violence by which I will exhibit my masculinity um, via the sort of submission and in some cases extinction of the body of another human being, right? Yeah, DT brought up Kyle Rittenhouse. Again, same thing. It's this fucking fantasy.
Yeah, historian Richard Slotkin, I believe it
Uh-huh.
is. He wrote Regeneration Through Violence, I believe is the book's name. I remember reading that in college, and it's very descriptive of this sort of history of violence ethos in American culture.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's horrible stuff. Someone brought up Jedis being like cops. We can talk about that more later. Um, Yeah, I mean, Drum Wild in the chat said military personnel are trained to be violent when they go in, but not taught to be nonviolent before being unleashed upon society. Yeah, I think there's something there for sure. Dead Card 13 says us white males have had every piece of media telling us all we need is an opportunity to be the hero through vigilante action. Yeah, and let me say this as well for anyone who might think that I'm just being a little cuck. I, when I speak on this, I say this as someone, and you guys probably aren't going to believe this because I seem pretty soft. In my life, I have struggled. I'll be very honest with you all with anger issues. Maybe this is coming from an Irish Catholic family of drinkers, and I grew up around a lot of like pretty like toxic, stereotypical masculinity. And there was chunks of my life where like I would try to get into fights, where I loved escalating situations, and even situations I feel like in relationships I had early on, where like I'd be with a woman out someplace and someone bumps into her, and my reaction is like, I gotta kill this guy now. And often the person I'm with is like, no, like that's not good, Mike. That's not a good thing to do. And my brain had to be like, oh, that's not. But I thought you as a woman I'm interested in, you want me to exhibit my masculinity and my ability to protect you. And then they're like, no, I want you to be like a kind person who's focused on me and what makes me feel good and not some idiot that bumped into me in a bar. Crazy lesson to learn. Crazy lessons to learn, guys. Um, but remember, guys, I'm old, so I've had time to learn stuff, and I grew up in a very toxic era. So, you know, and now I'm not like that. Now I'm the sort of person who, if I see people like getting into violent stuff, I want to step in between them and be like, guys, let's just talk. Like the last time I broke up a bar fight, I got in between two guys and was like, listen, you're here to have fun with your friends. You're here to have fun with your friends. We're all here to have fun with our friends. Why don't we just do that or something? And it actually worked. It actually worked. Um, but all that to say is that I get this not just from an external scoldy judging perspective, but I get it from a white man that grew up in an era where that behavior was valorized and grew up even in a, you know, familial situation where things like that were valorized. I'm striving to, someone said, Dashing LP said, what changed? I don't know if you're talking to me in particular, but I'll act as if you are. Um, I mean, what changes, of course, is a listening to other people and in learning that that type of anger isn't normal. It's not like good. It's not like a normal thing to have. It's okay. Anger is a human emotion, but it's not good. Do it like that. Yeah, Mellow Jello's had some similar experiences. Logan had to break up a fight at a hardcore show the other week. Yeah. Um, Someone said world star. But also too, like, I think the letter W said my perception of Burns is shattered. Well, I hope your perception of me can be that I'm a human who has grown. Someone said he smoked weed, but I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Overshare corner, part two. Um, Having positive experiences with psychedelics has largely affected my perception on things like that and made me a kinder person who thinks that violence is bad. So there you go. But all that to say is we're getting back to the Jordan Neely situation. It is a situation where one read on a situation like this is that certain types of people in society are able to just straight up kill someone else in society with potentially no consequences. Now, someone might say, and I want to try to devil's advocate here, well, people were uncomfortable on that train. And I'll say this, I took public transit very late at night in LA over the weekend, which can be pretty fucking gnarly. I'm not gonna lie, I don't love it. Back from the Willie Nelson 90th birthday show. I can answer questions about the Willie Nelson show in the chat. Um, but like often it is uncomfortable. And public transportation does suck and it's kind of sketchy in lots of ways, but I would say that, like, have I ever felt physically unsafe in, like, Los Angeles public transportation? No. Have I ever felt uncomfortable? Hell yes. I felt extremely uncomfortable, and it sucks and it's uncomfortable to see someone with, like, untreated mental illness having a breakdown in public, but using that as an excuse to kill someone's not good. Yeah, Penny also is struggled with anger issues. So, yeah. And again, when I bring up psychedelics, hope everyone knows it's not just like you like do drugs and everything's okay. It's like you go into this stuff with like an intention and you think about it and you're thoughtful and all that sort of stuff. So there you go. Logan brought up the Billy. So yeah, Logan, Billy Strings came out and played that song with Willie at the end of that show. It was awesome. But and Lexa Power and Angelino brings up the red line, the purple line. Yeah, public transportation has gotten rough since the pandemic. Jello Shots, glad you're here. Okay, so That said, let's watch. We got a couple videos up on this. I'm gonna pull this one up first, which I
Right
think
now,
is
new
is
information
a
about the
kind
man.
of like get right to the point type thing. And again, we're gonna talk about what happened in this Jordan Neely situation. If this is something that like really, really bums you out, just take a little bit of a pause. Oh, and someone brings up that yeah, things like that. Um, yeah, Lexa brings up, I always feel physically unsafe on public transit here. Yeah, and note that when I say I don't feel unsafe or whatever, I say that with the privilege of uh, a tall dude, and I'm aware that as a tallish dude, people are less likely to want to mess with me, and especially I know women have to deal with a level of stuff I wouldn't have to deal with. Logan is also a member of the Red Line Gang. No ho, bang bang.
Right now, new information about the man who died in the subway after being restrained.
The language too, the man who died. I just like this how whenever someone is like killed in a way like this, they're not murdered, they weren't choked to death. They just died. How did he die? Oh, he just died.
Trained by
Jello Shots gifted 10 memberships. I'm just going to acknowledge that right now before it gets kind of dark right here. An incredibly cool thing to do. We really appreciate it. Current Lord of the chat is Jello Shots.
a former Marine. Good evening. I'm Maurice Dubois. The medical examiner has now ruled that passenger's death a homicide by chokehold. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office says it's reviewing the ME's report and is investigating. CBS 2's Jennifer Bisram reports.
On the same subway platform where 30-year-old Jordan Neely took some of his last breaths, dozens gathered holding signs in honor of Neely, who many say was a Michael Jackson impersonator who entertained subway riders.
Our life was essentially taken away.
Oh, man, just like the level, and I'm not saying this to be silly, just like where we're at in America is just really crazy that we're just like murdering Michael Jackson impersonators. Um, Also, again, Wisecrack Live, thank you for being here. We're we're getting into this, and then we're going to talk about the strike stuff more later. Mellow gifted 5 memberships, incredibly cool. Lords of the Chat's coming in hot.
Someone who's homeless, struggling with mental health, and I think right now a lot of folks are infuriated because our government is not prioritizing housing.
Police sources say around 2:30 Tuesday afternoon.
I'll pause it. So Nate Lynch asked a question. So just curious, what does and doesn't fall under personal responsibility, or is everything everyone else's fault problem? No, and I think that's like important, Nate, to like acknowledge that I'm not trying to say something like, everything is the system's fault and no one has personal responsibility. I think that's a really dangerous way to think about things. And I think it's a good question. I'm glad you're pointing that out. But in this instance, it's like when we think about personal responsibility, let's let's say in this instance, I mean, it's like I think when it comes to mental health stuff, especially, we have to acknowledge that if you have a broken leg, I'm not going to hold you personally responsible for not being able to run fast, right? That would be absurd. If I said, you have a broken leg, you got to run fast. Everyone would say, that's stupid, Michael. He's a broken leg. Like he physically can't. And I think sometimes we have to be more analogous in our thinking about mental health in that way. Like if you have a broken leg, you can't run fast. If you have severe mental health issues, you might not be able to emotionally regulate or think rationally in certain situations. Now, does this mean that if someone is having a mental health issue, they get to hurt you or treat you poorly? No, it doesn't. It does not mean that at all. But I think in some cases it means, like, for example, as someone who lives in a larger city who personally sees um, someone, oh yeah, I really like this point. Cranamagon or something made. Personal responsibility is important personally. As a policy, it's a way to solve zero problems. I think that's a really great way to put it. But I think like, yeah, and then someone said, what about the personal responsibility of not murdering people? But I know the thing I've had to learn in life is that, if I encounter an unhoused person in my neighborhood near me who's going through like a mental health thing, like it sucks. And like, I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I'm not gonna be some like liberal snowflake. It's a bad vibe. Like, I don't like it. Like, I don't like if I'm walking to get a coffee and someone is like screaming slurs at a wall next to me or saying insane shit. Do not like it. Is not fun. However, I have to be able to acknowledge, like, okay, this isn't about me. Um, this is a person going through significant mental health stuff, and like it sucks. I don't like it. But I'm not gonna like blame them for doing that. Now, to be fair, like if someone is doing that and they're like causing harm to other people, then like, yeah, that is bad. And something needs to happen there, you know? So I don't know. I just to rant a little bit off that question, which again, Nate Lynch asked that. I think it's a really important question. And I think we got to think through some of this stuff with subtlety. Um, but yeah, I mean, Logan Reese says people want public spaces and services to be pretty without actually investing in improving them. So yeah, you know, it's like one of those things where in Los Angeles, our public transit system is like pretty gnarly, but it's like, what would make it better? Well, investing in the physical spaces would make it better. Updating trains and buses would make it better. Having, you know, public safety officers and a budget for mental health care workers to be on those systems would benefit it. Like, there's things we could do, but then no one wants to do that sort of stuff. So there you go. Okay, I'm gonna keep watching this video.
Afternoon, Neely was allegedly throwing trash, yelling at passengers, and acting erratically on the F train at the East Houston and Lafayette Street station.
To be clear, and let's be honest here, I'm not gonna be a snowflake. Like that
Things
sucks.
quickly
If I was on a
escalate.
train and someone was throwing trash and yelling, that would suck. I would maybe get off at the next stop. I would walk to their side of the car. I would want to get out of that situation. I'm making that clear. I'm not going to act holier than thou.
Things quickly escalated when the 24-year-old man, who police say may have been a Marine, tried to subdue him by using what appears to be a chokehold.
We're just outraged as a community that there has been no arrest or formal bringing of charges against the man who's yet to be identified who killed Jordan Neely.
Police say Neely eventually lost consciousness and later died.
Jello Shots in the chat says, so Ryan Klein says, why must mental health issues just be American? They're definitely not, Ryan Klein. And I think that, you know, sometimes we talk about this stuff from our context. I do know, and Ryan, I know it varies from country to country. I do know that at least in like the context of the West or whatever, America tends to have the least amount of access to these things, but I know other countries have this as well. And know that if you're non-American, always share your experiences in the chat. We like to hear stuff like that, and we want to know what's going on with you. Jello Shot says, I think it's important to point out that it's the uncomfortable feeling. It's like breaking the veil society puts around that we are a nation of great riches. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. We don't like stuff like this because it reminds us that that's what reality is like. And I know, so, you know, I have some family that live in suburban Orlando, Florida, a very just like pretty nice place. And some of those family, when they've come to visit LA, have been like, what the fuck? And there was a time I picked up a family member from the train station in LA. And in the drive from the train station to my house, we saw 2 dicks and one person shitting on the sidewalk. And I laugh because of the absurdity of it. And like, I do not think this family member was a bad person for being like, what the fuck is this? They're not used to seeing stuff like that. And then we get closer to my house and they're like, why are there just like encampments everywhere? Now, why is that shocking? Well, it's shocking because we live in a society that normally allows us to not acknowledge that stuff like that exists. And then it's uncomfortable to be confronted with the fact that that is not outside of the world we live in, but a part of the world we live in. Aaron V says, as somebody from Iceland, yes, we have socialized healthcare, but it's not as amazing as media makes it seem. Yeah. And I think, Aaron, too, like, we probably, you know, get like what's the word I'm looking for? Fantasize about a country like Iceland or places like that and make it something it's not because of what we have here. I know, for example, in a country like the UK where I used to live, increasingly their healthcare system is getting ransacked. It looks like even more so now. Yeah. Let's see. Ryan Klein says, let's just say I know someone with experience with mental health support in America. I'm sure it could be better. What is the level of care needed exactly? I don't know. Part of me just thinks that like it should be accessible, I guess. Like I don't know. At a baseline, I just feel like physical and mental health care should be at least like decently accessible to people. I know that sounds really vague and maybe isn't a good answer, Ryan, but I just feel like it should be accessible to everyone. And that might mean that there's like significant waits. It might mean that there's a triage system where people in more dire situations, you know, get used quicker, but I don't know. And I don't know. I don't have the right answer for that. Wow. Michael from Apopka. Yeah, and Michael, I do think Orlando is a city that kind of has that thing where it's very bifurcated. I don't know, man, brings up what's going on in the UK. Yeah, I feel like I lived in the UK at one of the last points um where sorry, where one of the last points where the NHS worked well. Okay, so Brandon McInnes asked an interesting question. Why aren't we talking about the mental health of the guy whose response to throwing trash is choking someone to death? Someone made a comment earlier which I thought was really apt, which was like people go into the military and on the way in, they're taught to utilize violence. On the way out, they're not taught to not utilize violence. Um, and to be clear, that is like a systemic thing. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that. Like in America sometimes, I'm sure this is the case in all countries, but we train people in the military, we train police officers, we train them to turn off a level of their humanity. And again, this isn't me even being like anti-military or whatever. This is a part of like military training. We break people down to subdue aspects of their humanity that could lead them to being empathetic and emotionally connected to others so that they are able to carry out the mission, i.e., kill people. And you can't just like train someone to kill people and throw them back into society. I mean, not to be silly, but like the Rambo movies explore that. Like tons of movies, especially in the 70s and 80s and the post-Vietnam generation, explore like what happens when you throw people into this environment where you turn them into, you know, mercenaries and soldiers and just bring, I mean, Apocalypse Now gets at the psychology of all this. So I think it's totally fair to bring up both sides of that. Look at us just both sidesing everything. Welcome to Wisecrack Liberal Live. Let's see. Okay, cool. So keep liking the stream if you're here. We'll finish watching this.
This is absolutely devastating. This should have never happened. This was absolutely preventable.
Governor Kathy Hochul Wednesday.
That was deeply disturbing, and that causes a lot of fear in people. And actually, the mayor and I are working so hard to restore that sense of safety.
CBS 2 has learned Neely was homeless, had a history of mental illness, had prior arrests, and had an active warrant out for his arrest for a felony assault. Advocates say no matter his past, Neely did not deserve to die.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the simple thing with all this, right? Like, because what often happens, you know, like when George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin, it was something like, oh, but he smoked weed one time. And the media like says stuff like that in this way where it's like, oh yeah, we should fucking kill him then. He smoked weed one time? Fucking off with his head. And it's very funny how we do that. Jealous Shot says we also throw soldiers back in society with no access to care or money, and then wonder why we have homeless veterans. Yeah, I mean, one of the first big outbreak of the homelessness crisis in America and yeah, Ryan Klein brings up the S word in veterans. It's incredibly way too high. But yeah, I mean, like we put people in those positions, and you know, talk to people, talk to ex-soldiers, especially ones that don't have a lot of means, about the VA hospital. Yeah, Extraneous brings up Born in the USA. Like Bruce Springsteen has a song about this. Also, guys, let's just talk about Bruce Springsteen for a second. Let's talk about the song Born in the USA. Let's talk about the number of politicians over the years who have like used Born in the USA as this like really cool song. Talk about the people at bars late at night that comes on and they're like singing. It's a song about like the destruction of the working class and the minds of people sent off to die for nothing. The song is a critique of American militarism and capitalism, but because it says, and it's ironic, the Born in the USA, there's irony there because the point is it should be this great thing to be born in the USA, but actually this fucking sucks. Guys, put some respect on Springsteen's name. Big Springsteen head here, so there you go. Yeah, and Lexa points out it's hard for veterans to even get good jobs. Carson says, what is the S word? I will say, we're talking about suicide. Suicide rates amongst ex-military service members is incredibly high. I do not have the stats in front of me. I'm confident enough to say that they are significantly higher than in the general population. Someone said suicide a bad word now. No, I don't think it's a bad word. Not just the thing that we're trying to be sensitive around because it's like kind of real. Fortunate Son, yes, another great song there. John Fogerty, was that a Fogerty or a CCR song? CCR, okay, great. Yeah, it's another song that's like not about how like war is cool and good, but there you go. Born on the 4th of July starring Tom Cruise. You know, I've never seen that movie. I've never seen Born on the 4th of July. Is that the movie where, what is that movie about?
I have not seen it either.
Yeah, I don't watch Tom Cruise movies as a protest against the missing Shelley Miscavige. That's not true. It's bad that Shelley Miscavige is missing. If you don't know, the Shelley Miscavige is the
Extremely.
wife of David Miscavige, the guy that runs Scientology. And this lady's just like missing, just missing. And you know, it's bad that Tom Cruise is a Scientologist. What are you going to do? DT says, Burns, what do you think drives this indifference? Is there no contemplative subjectivity? I'm going to throw things out there now. I'm going to respond to DT's question, guys. And this is kind of, I'm just going to say stuff and it might be wrong. Something that I think is that when people have to spend a lot of their life focused on the conditions of survival, it leaves less material, emotional, and economic room to worry or care about the existence and sufferings of others.
Yeah.
I kind of think that that's a thing. And I think that, like, if many people are just like, okay, my job is kind of like tenuous. I got to keep that job. Rent is going up. It's hard to pay. I got a bunch of debt. I don't know. I just think it doesn't leave a lot of room and it creates, it's like the crabs in the bucket mentality. And I think that in many ways, society is getting more and more crabs in the bucket. Oh, Ryan, yeah, YouTube algorithm. That was very smart of you. But yeah, I don't know. Nelson's catching up from 25 minutes ago. But he's worried. Oh, it's good to know his notoriety is growing. So there you go. Yeah, Ryan, that's a very good part. Very good point. Ryan's trying to help the stream not get shut down. Okay, Professor Puppet is explaining the plot of Born on the 4th of July. I appreciate that. But again, thanks for being here. This is Wisecrack Live. Obviously, lots to talk about today. We're just kind of wrapping up talking about the Jordan Neely situation. We're going to talk a lot about the strike today. So let's maybe kind of transition into that. And then let's remember, if I forget, around noon, Henry, let's do the thing. We'll talk about our special sponsored thing here. But yeah, let's see. Okay. So just again, good chat. Everyone's being, well, Hungry Killer said your mom's notoriety is growing. It really is. It really is. And I'm not happy about it. This is Wisecrack Live. It's Michael Burns here with producer Henry, talking about lots of stuff. Does weed help or hurt philosophical thinking, says Antoine Walters. I don't think it does either. You know, I think that a lot of writers and academics in different points will talk about using, you know, weed or alcohol to help ideation. I think there's a risk of valorizing that such that people who maybe struggle with substance abuse feel like they have to. I feel like it's like individual stuff. I've definitely before, when I've been working on creative projects, maybe get a little bit high, take a shower, put some music on and just like brainstorm and then like write some stuff down. And maybe if I write 10 things down, 2 of them are actually good and 8 of them are crap. Dirty Dan in the chat, folks, gets paranoid living in Tennessee. I conceal carry, but I wish I didn't need to. Everyone here is waiting for the opportunity to illegally kill someone. Yeah, I do think that's the risk, right? That people like have guns and they just want to be a hero. I don't want to be a hero. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So let's start to get into our live streams more or less of a pain in the ass than videos. Brandalorian, what do you mean exactly? A pain in the ass in terms of like making them, promoting them? I don't know. Like the stream if you're here, speaking of promotions. So let's start out with, let's see. Got a lot of options on strike stuff. Let's maybe start with this newsy one. And then we'll maybe watch this Adam Conover thing because he does something really funny in it. Okay, so we're gonna start talking about the writer's strike. We'll give a little backup here. Let's see. So a background. So some of you might know this if you've been alive for a while. We had a writer's strike in, what was it, 2008, 2009, 2007, somewhere in that range. 2007. There you go. I was close. You know, we had a writer's strike before. That writer's strike largely had to do with the encroachment of streaming and the digital world. And the writer's strike was voted on by the Writers Guild of America. That is a union made up of writers who largely work in the film and television industry. There's also the Writers Guild East, which includes writers from the digital world and journalism and stuff like that. Okay, so the Brandalorian asked which is more fun, which is more work. Brandalorian, I would say that streaming is more fun, and I'll tell you why it's more fun because it's interactive. And we shoot our normal videos. I'm in a room alone, staring at like a camera, and there's a little prompter and stuff. And our producer Olivia is in another room, but there's no chat. It's not like an organic thing that's happening. I don't have Henry doing it with me or whatever, and I like interaction and I like organic conversation. So I very, very much enjoy streaming. I would say this is one of my favorite things that I do. Now I like our videos. I like making them. It's very fun. Um, but I love this. This is why when I go on, some of you know this, I'm going in a couple months, I'll be doing a parental leave from work, but I'm gonna get back to streaming sooner than anything because I'm just gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss you guys. But Writers strike, Writers Guild going on strike. Is this stream considered scabbing? Dirty Dan, it's not because as far as I know, Henry, we are not members of the Writers Guild of America. We are not currently producing any written content for any of the studios involved in any of this. So is what it is. We have full solidarity with everyone going through that, but we're not in that world. We just support that. But basically, strike happening now. And the simplest way to think about stuff like this is that people in the world of the like the Ted Sarandoses and the people who like own streaming companies, media companies, studios, these guys make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. And they've used things like streaming to find ways to slowly pay writers less and less and less and less, such that writing for television, like in the 90s, and it was like a cash cow. People in the 90s that got jobs and worked on like silly sitcoms and the Seinfelds and Everybody Loved Raymond and Friends and all sort of shit. These people are eaten for life. They're eaten for the rest of their lives because they got paid a shit ton of money to work on those shows. Then they went into syndication, and then every time an episode of Seinfeld or Friends or whatever airs on TBS, motherfuckers are getting a check. And hey, there's a lot of people that make money in this world doing evil things. I have no problem with that. That has shifted drastically. If you showed up to the stream late, I mean, I even mentioned earlier that like I have been less proactive about wanting to get a TV writing job because I would have to take a pay cut in many ways, which is crazy because like you guys have seen inside my apartment. Like I'm not a rich man. I do drive a Subaru though. I drive a Subaru. That's probably the fanciest thing about me. Let's see. Okay, cool. So I think Michael listens to script notes. I have listened to script notes. I don't always listen to every episode of script notes. But yeah, so things are bad in that world. There's a lot you could read about it. And again, Lexa Power is in here and she's happy to answer questions, which is great. And just a reminder, Colby Day is coming on at 12:30, member of the WGA, to talk with us about this stuff. So, definitely stick around till then, or for any reason, I'm just going to let him know that we see him. He's coming on. So, even if you don't want to stick around until then, come back at 12:30 and Colby Day will be here. He's someone that's involved in what's going on right now. I'll answer this. Moises said, if you got a writing job, would that mean you're leaving Wisecrack? The only time I ever really had a good shot at a TV writing job, the plan at that point would have been something like I would have taken like a leave from some of my writing stuff and then would have still hosted the videos and then come back. I would not leave this job for a mini room. Our friend Lexa knows why. Okay, so let's watch this first video.
Is 80-something million. So just to give you...
Oh, it's way ahead. Or is that where it should start? Oh no, that was my bad. I just copied a link wrong.
Day 2 of the Writers Guild of America strike is underway. The ripple effect really being felt across the entertainment industry. Production is halted for several prominent late-night shows as well. Of course, more disruptions are expected as TV and film writers continue to demand higher wages. CBS News correspondent Elise Preston joins us now from Los Angeles to speak about what's happening. Elise, it's only day 2, but we understand this strike could go on for months. So what's the status of negotiations, if they're actually happening right now, or maybe not?
Well, Errol, it doesn't even appear that these two groups are close to making a deal. Before the strike even began, negotiations stopped hours before the deadline, giving you an indicator just of that. And there were main key issues that were sticking points. The Writers Guild released a side-by-side comparison of what they were asking for, what the studios offered. One of those main issues being the use of AI. Some platforms can write scripts in just seconds, and the Writers Guild does not want AI technology to be used in writing literary content. When they presented that offer, according to this document that was
I will say that we did an AI episode on this channel. So if you want to see how good AI is at writing Wisecrack scripts, we got that for you.
released, the studios said that they would only look into the issue. Another key issue is residuals. Writers are only getting a fraction of residual checks that they used to get if something re-aired on network broadcasts. Now that those shows are showing up on streaming platforms, they're getting just dollars or cents on checks that used to be hundreds of dollars, sometimes even thousands. They're asking for a larger bulk of the residual pie there. And in the counter offer, the studio producers are giving them just a fraction. The number was like
And if anyone wants to read the details, a lot of this is the WGA on like their Twitter account and stuff like that posted both what their demands were and what the counter offers were. They were bad.
400 something million versus 80 something million. So just to give you a look there. And then there are issues about weeks that they're working. Writers want to see a minimum amount of weeks throughout the year that they are guaranteed to work.
And I'll say the issue with this one is it used to be the case that back in the day. So again, let's say you write on Friends or whatever, they might have like 23 episodes or whatever, which means you're going to work 30 something weeks. And when you get these jobs, you normally get paid per week, plus you get script rates and stuff like that. So if I'm getting paid 30 weeks during the year, I'm making a good amount of money there. Maybe I do some other consulting work. And then maybe I have time when I'm not on that show where I'm developing my own projects or whatever. I'm still working, but I'm having to live off that other money. Now, as more shows, and we see the stuff on, like Netflix, Hulu, stuff like that, are 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 10 episodes. Well, the writer's room might be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. And as people get paid at lower levels, well, I'm just getting paid for those 10 weeks. What if I don't have a job after that? What if that show doesn't come back for a year? What if that show doesn't get renewed? It puts people in these situations where 1 month they're working at their dream job on some very cool show, and the next week they're on unemployment. So it's really hard to carve out a living. And of course, to speak about class a little bit, this negatively affects like poor people and people of color more than anyone, because who can do those jobs and not have to worry about it? Super fucking rich kids from Harvard and stuff like that. No offense if you went to Harvard, great institution, but it's like super rich kids are the ones that like can move out to LA. Their family pays for shit, and they work when they work, don't work when they won't work. And that's why a lot of people that make film and television are white dudes from Harvard.
The studio is not budging on that. There has been no.
So the letter W says, I find it really, really hard to care about workers in Hollywood getting fleeced when they watch the same thing happen to the Rust Belt and call them deplorables. I think the letter W, I think that's like an interesting point, right? And I think it's about who we're going to call bad. I guess the issue here, I would say, is that like if there is a class of people, because one thing that's true is like Los Angeles and Hollywood is not a liberal paradise. Most of the people that run the studios are staunchly conservative, and they're like not good. So it's not some liberal commie leftist paradise. A lot of people who are actors and who are famous are just total idiots. Like we had someone like I know she's not an actor, but she's a performer. Like Katy Perry endorsed a horrible mayoral candidate in Los Angeles. A lot of these, like Gwyneth Paltrow, idiot when it comes to politics. And don't get me started on the Mel Gibsons of the world. But if there is a group of people in the city who I do see as being some of the most socially and politically engaged, it tends to be the writers. When it's come to supporting progressive candidates, being involved in those sort of movements. And we'll see this in a second when we watch an Adam Conover interview thing. I don't think it's a lot of that class of people who were, shitting on Rust Belt workers. I really, really don't think that. I 100% get what you're saying though, letter W, and I think that there's a valid point to be made there that sometimes people can struggle to express labor solidarity with people who don't share their political ideologies, which is hard. But I think it's an interesting point. What are you thinking, Henry?
Just thinking, like, there was that very Hillary Clinton's the one who said the deplorables line and is the
Yeah.
reason that so many people ran with that imagery. I do feel there's a bit of both, like, a neoliberal straw man to be looked at as far as, like, who we think is saying the word deplorables, and kind of this misconstrual of the creative industry's default Democrat voting.
Definitely, and you know, and I guess in fairness, I think Hillary Clinton does like run a production company or something now because all of these
Right.
politicians are ghouls and all they want to do is like have a political office so they can be like the Clintons and Obamas and
A lot
Prince
of the
Harry and Meghan Markle and start production companies, which does feel icky.
Yeah, a lot of
Just
the post-political career production pursuits of these people should, like, it's them telling us in broad daylight what their priorities are more so than social activism.
yeah, I mean, Alexa Power says, I promise you, I've never heard a single production worker diss the Rust Belt. We have people on set from all parts of the country and the world. Adam Duke says, super chat, really appreciate your honesty when talking about difficult subjects. Angry. Thank you so much, Adam. Really, really appreciate that. But Alexa then points out that, you know, it's people in higher positions that tend to be the ghouls. But guys, people in higher positions everywhere are just ghouls. That's how the world works. It's all the ghouls up there. But I'm glad that letter W asked that question because I have seen the sentiment on the internet where people are sort of like, why should I have political solidarity? Why should I be worried about what I perceive as well-to-do Hollywood writers with lots of Twitter followers? And I totally get that. And I get why people might be like, oh, so now we're all going to care about this group and we're not going to care about, like, you know, auto workers in Ohio that are out of jobs or people in Flint, Michigan who had their industry devastated. But I think the response to that isn't that we shouldn't support the WGA in a tit for tat way. The problem with that is we should then realize that those of us who want to have solidarity with something like the WGA should also have that with out of work auto workers, or you know what I mean? I think that's the push. So it shouldn't be that, you know, it should be that we like become more inclusive the way we think about who we have labor solidarity with and less exclusive. I don't know. Let's see. Hey, Maeve, good to see you. Sorry, just catching up on chat. Okay, so let's watch this a little bit more.
Counter offer. And then another issue, they want to also see, writers want to see more writers in writing rooms. They're asking for a minimum of 12 as opposed to 6, which is in the offer currently. And the studios are not budging on that as well.
Elise, you've spelled out some real epic shifts in the industry that writers have had to grapple with. As we've all enjoyed streaming platforms, it's changed the business.
We do enjoy
which I think is why writers want to renegotiate for better terms while these streaming platforms are saying too expensive to pay you the.
And I think like there's I think some of you guys probably follow this person on Twitter. He's been on stream before, but Yodoye Travis had some really good tweets earlier in the week about this, where he got a little more existential about this and kind of posed the question of, isn't it crazy that we struggle to even step back and think about how weird it is that the creation of art and culture has been so deeply commodified in the first place that we end up in a position like this. So I would say if this is something you're thinking about as well, I would definitely go check out some of his tweets on the issue because I thought they were very good and kind of complicating some of the things around this as well.
The residuals, all the things you used to have. So considering there's such a big space.
And I'm going to agree with what I see in the chat. This guy's accent is very specific and I can't stop thinking about it. I say this is someone who lived in England for a while. This isn't quite an English accent. I want to know where this guy's from.
Between what these writers want and where the industry is moving, and you mentioned AI as well, how long could this drag on? Could it
maybe he started out in England and then moved to America when he was like 15?
be like the last strike and last weeks into months?
Or even longer, Errol. Some experts are telling us that this strike could be 6 months to a year.
Wow.
The last strike was 100 days, so just north of 3 months. There are a lot of
And be clear if you missed that, the last time there was a strike, 100 days.
dissimilarities between these two strikes. Number one, that one was 15 years ago. We didn't have a network, or we did not have streaming platforms, as you mentioned, not to the extent that we have now.
Yeah.
So there are some streaming networks who have content that is stockpiled. It is ready to go. It has been stockpiled for a while. But we also have more reality television programming this go round. The last strike, it gave rise to streaming platforms. That's where, or excuse me, to reality platforms. That's where the Kardashians kind of took off in popularity. And
Guys, the Kardashians are going to be okay. I know that's what we're all wondering. The Kardashians are going to be okay.
2007.
Yeah, maybe it is South African.
And another interesting key point here is that this strike is happening after a lot of.
Oh my God, this is amazing. So he's Maori from New Zealand. This is great. And again, we're just doing this because it's fun. We like accents, and it's fun.
The season finales for shows have already aired. The last strike in 2007, that was kind of in the middle. So there were some shows that fans never saw resolved. They never saw conclusions because the shows just went away.
Yeah, and I think if when people, and it's fine to worry about like your stories. I think what this means in the most cases, it's stuff that's airing right now. It's all going to end because the production schedule is so far in advance. It means you're not going to get new seasons of the stuff you're excited about for a while. So there you go. Someone said to writers not do the script for reality TV. So here's what's interesting there, right? Reality TV staffs have writers on them. However, they are non-union, right? So on all the reality shows, of course, someone writes the stuff that the hosts say. Someone writes up games, activities, they structure narratives, all this sort of stuff, but they are not union writers. So they are able to keep working. A lot of like game shows are like that as well. They all have writers, but many of them are non-union. So that's why we're still going to get reality shows. We're going to get a lot of them. And I wouldn't be shocked too if we see a push on a lot of streaming networks to lots of non-American shows as well, because those will all be getting produced still.
Are you ready for the next season of MILF Manor?
As of
so guys, he's not here today, but if anyone hasn't listened to it, I was on an episode of Vox Podcast, the podcast that our friend Dr. Professor Christopher Maverick, PhD, who's often in the chat, is Vox Podcast host, where I got to talk to him and his co-host Monica Marvelous about MILF Manor. You know, I've shared my thoughts there. You can hear them. Henry, I don't think it's coming back. I think there could be endless writer strikes. I don't think that MILF Manor is ever coming back because it's a horrible show. It's just a horrible show. It was so bad in every way. Before we watch this next video, guys, this stream does have a sponsor. Maybe we just pull the website up. Oh, I think it's in the chat. It's just guard.io, if you're able to pull that up. Awesome. So guys, this is a real thing. I don't know if you guys ever do this, but sometimes on the internet, and this is a real thing. Great. This is, am I doing what is in a sense an ad read for a company that's sponsoring the stream? Yes. But what I'm saying to you is real right now. Sometimes I click things online. It could be when I'm looking to download some music. Sometimes I download books illegally. Sometimes I get to websites that don't look great, and I click things. And when I click things, it's like I'm playing a game of Russian roulette. And sometimes I click the wrong thing. And I go to weird websites, and you get pop-ups, and maybe someone's getting your data, all this sort of stuff. And guard.io is a company that's worked with Wisecrack before. It's an extension for your browser, and it basically helps you not have that happen to you. We still have a code in there. I think you can go to guard.io/Wisecrack or just type in Wisecrack when you go there. But I would say it is worth looking into if you ever click on sketchy links, if you're just out here on the internet, if you're being like a little weird on the internet. And I know some of you look at weird stuff. And I know a couple of you right now feel like I'm talking directly to you. I know some of you look at weird stuff on the internet. I'm not judging. We're not here to kink shame or whatever. But it just can really help you from not getting jammed up. So I recommend checking out Guard. guard.io. It works really well. And literally once you have the extension put in there, you try to click something, it'll say to you like, dog, do you really want to do this? It doesn't use that exact language, but it's basically like, bud, dog, friend, I don't think we should do this, which is so incredibly helpful. I know the price in front of me too. It's pretty cheap as well. So, check that out, guard.io. And it's either guard.io/wisecrack, or when you get there, you can use us for a code and we make it real cheap for you. So check that out. And hey, share in the chat what weird stuff you look at. I'm just kidding. Please don't do that. Okay, so let's watch this. This is Adam Conover on CNN. He says a funny thing at one point on this. But so this is the perspective of a writer working on stuff. Hold on a second, guys. Are you going? Hey, congratulations, guys. My wife is going to defend her PhD today. So send good vibes. Yeah. So just, send good vibes into the ether that my wife has a great PhD defense. It's a really sad day for me because I've been the only doctor in our household. And now there's going to be two of us. So I can't, mansplain things by being like, well, that's a PhD. But, send good vibes that way. I love you. It's going to go really well. Okay. And some of you are wondering, is he just talking to no one off screen? Is there a person there? Is this a sad man alone in a corner imagining his PhD wife? No, she's real. I swear to God. But send her good vibes, please. Okay. And don't worry, I'm going to bug you guys a lot in the coming months when her book gets released to pre-order it. So get ready. Start saving money. You can quit Patreon to get her book. Okay, let's watch this video.
This morning, more than 11,000 TV and movie writers, they're on strike, halting multiple productions and possibly delaying new seasons of some of your favorite shows. What that means is this, that late night TV shows, they will see the first impact. They depend, understandably, on writers for fresh material all the time and in real time. So you could soon be looking at reruns. You may also soon see more reality TV.
Well, I forgot to tell you guys, Henry and I are taking over for Jimmy Kimmel. Totally forgot. Since we're not union, we're going to be doing that slot as well. So be excited about that.
Popping up. During the last big strike in 2007, shows like Big Brother and Survivor, they boomed, filling the void when scripted shows were.
Hey guys, you know who boomed during the last strike? Do we know who boomed as a reality star during the last one? Can we say it in the chat? Let's see who gets there first. Who became a massive star during the last writer's strike? Someone who we might not have thought about as an important person. Yep, extraneous, got it, Trump.
Halted. The big difference this time around is the vast content universe coming from the streaming services. From
HGD, her defense is not a public thing.
Hulu to
if so, I'd be streaming from there.
Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus. They have tons of shows and movies readily available and can offer new content for quite some time. As for that last big strike in 2007, it left a mark. It cost roughly $2.1 billion after that strike lasted 100 days. Now, right now, media and tech companies, they're grappling with three big issues, it seems. Weak advertising market that has driven stock prices down and driven them to cut costs and cut their labor force. The writers...
It's almost like inherently tying creativity to the fluctuations of the stock market and the advertising market. Maybe it wasn't the best.
Also face a very tough reality.
It's not a science PhD. I'll just, my wife's PhD is in a poetry and creative writing. Poetry and, it's English and creative writing is the thing, but she does poetry, but it's an English and creative writing PhD.
Reality right now as well. They say a lack of...
And no, we're not working for Kimmel. Sorry, I said that, guys. I'm bad at indicating sarcasm. Henry and I are not taking
pure joke.
We would though, Mr. ABC, if you're watching.
Jobs combined with low pay makes the current situation just unsustainable. Last month,
yeah, extraneous says 100 days cost $2 billion, but they don't want to pay writers 70 to 100K a year. Yeah.
98% of the members of the Writers Guild voted in favor
Who are those 2%
of this strike.
snitches?
Sarah?
All right, thank you, Kate. Joining me now is television writer, showrunner, and host of Adam Ruins Everything, Adam Conover. Since you're known for ruining everything, is this your fault?
Wow. What a way to
I mean,
leave
I'm
that.
off the clock right now. We're on strike, so I'm not ruining anything for the time being, except maybe the profits of the companies.
All right. Explain why you feel that it is so important that this strike goes forward, that this has to happen now.
So,
and I love that people are sending good luck to Miss Burns. We didn't change names. So sadly, she doesn't get to be a Burns. She is in spirit, though. She is in
So
spirit.
the studios and the streamers have tried to turn television writing from a career into a gig job. Writer pay.
That's really well put. Sorry, I'm not going to pause too much, but that was really well put there. That people are trying to turn screenwriting, TV writing from a career into a gig. And again, is this unique to film and television? It is not. We see this across basically every industry, the gigification of everything. So, but it is, yeah. Go ahead, Ernie.
Yeah, the continuing demand for just ever increasing returns really illustrates how if we weren't constantly demanding like higher and higher profits, like we can just fund everything. It's absurd.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's very. I'm not going to rant. Let's watch this.
Has fallen 3% over the past 10 years. Even though the company profits have gone up by 50%, they're spending more money than ever on making these shows. They're making more profit from them than ever. But writers are making less money. They're employing us for less time. And if you look at the proposals that they rejected that caused us to go on strike, they're proposals that would have protected writers, that would have made sure that when we're not just employed by the day, but by the week and by the month, that we can build a stable life in Los Angeles or New York where we.
And also, just to clarify as well, a couple things with this, and I'll probably get into some of this, but I'm going to say it. Two things, right? One thing, if you're in the union, so if you're in the writers union or the actors union, you get health insurance based on how much you work. So I have friends who have lost their health insurance because they didn't work enough days that year, actors and writers. So that's one. That sucks. The second thing is, it sucks that this is the case, but to be a professional writer, in most cases, you have to live in one of the two most expensive cities on planet Earth. So that's another thing. Like, you can't, if you're like really successful, you can go move wherever. But if you're trying to come up in the industry, you have to live in LA or New York, two incredibly expensive cities. So these are two factors as well that suck.
Live. And, that will prevent us from living in precarity.
No, someone brings up the teaching profession. I think Kwong O said that there. 100%. That's why I'm really stupid, because I left education to try to work in entertainment, and it's like the same shit happening. And it's just like, oh, it's my fault. I'm doing it to myself. If I join an industry, it's cursed, guys.
It is really facing struggle right now, and we are fighting for a stable life like all workers. We are showing some of the sticking points. Can you give us what some of those sticking points are? I think 98% of the members of the Writers Guild were in favor of the strike, and that's obviously the vast majority. What are some of the things that you guys are not going to compromise on? So the studios are trying to eliminate the writer's room. You're probably familiar with the term, the writer's room. This is a room that's existed for decades where writers get together and break a story and write scripts. The companies are trying to eliminate it. They're trying to make the room smaller. They're trying to employ us on a freelance basis. They'd rather we just stay home and email scripts in and
Bakht, I kind of agree with you.
And they pay us a fee every once in a while, and we can't make a living that way. And so our proposals are to ensure that there's a writer's room on every single show, and they have refused to even discuss that proposal with us. Another sticking point is that we want to make sure that writers are paid the same in streaming as they are on television. My first show was for True TV. My second show was for Netflix. The show had the exact same format, but on Netflix, we had no minimums, we had no protections, we were paid less. The residuals are literally 1% of what they were under broadcast. And that's true for everybody in late.
Hey, Ken Ocasio just got into Tisch NYU for dramatic writing. That's very cool. That's a good school. A lot of great people came out of that.
Night. That's true for screenwriters. It's true across all of our work areas. What do you say to those that run this industry that say, look, times are changing. We are not making as much money as we once did. This is not the golden era of television, although some of us would argue the shows are great.
I think he's about to go hard right here. So if you're paying half attention, pay more attention, because he goes hard in a second.
What do you say to them? So I'd point out the fact that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, the parent company of the network I'm talking to you on right now, was paid $250 million last year, $250 million.
Guys, imagine getting paid $250 million. Imagine you're doing your taxes. You got your W-2 or whatever, and you're like, oh, how much did I make last year? $250 million. Like, that's crazy. Guys, I'm not good at math, but let's do this. So what? That means that could be 250 people. Okay, I'm just gonna, I can't do this off the top of my head. What is 250 million divided by 100,000? Is that 2,500? Does Henry know? Does someone in the chat know? I just can't do it. I'm just being honest, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. 2,500. Okay. So that one guy's check could give 2,500 people $100,000 a year. That's crazy. Someone said you don't do your taxes. Oh yeah, that person doesn't do their taxes. And then Goody Dog, snapback, rich people pay taxes. You are totally right. But yeah, it's just crazy. It's so much money.
That's about the same level as what 10,000 writers are asking him to pay all of us collectively, all right? So I would say if you're being paid $250 million, Ted Sarandos made about $50 million last year. These companies are making enormous amounts of money. Their profits are going up. It's ridiculous for them to plead poverty when the writers who are making their shows, some of them are not able to pay their rent or their mortgages. I literally know writers who have had to go on assistance because they have not been able to make their year. If you look at these companies, they're making more money than ever. It's the people who make the shows for them that are making less.
Adam Conover, thank you so much for coming on because you ruined everything. You may have just ruined my career, but I don't mind. Appreciate you coming on and being very honest and candid with me. I should be in the writer's room, I think, John.
Wow, she's just out here. She's auditioning. She should be in the writer's room. There you go. Again, thanks for being here, guys. It's Wisecrack Live. It's Michael Burns. It's producer Henry. We are talking about the writer's strike right now. Colby Day is going to be joining us pretty soon to talk about this from an insider's perspective. So we're very excited. And as this strike continues to go on, again, I think we're all people, and I don't want to make assumptions about you all. We're people who like film and television a lot. We like watching things. We also like thinking critically about society and the way that economic, material, and social factors play into the media and the culture we consume. So I think this is something that is interesting for all of us. So I have some other folks who might be coming on in future weeks to talk about this stuff with us as well. Also, just a little fun teaser. We've been talking about France recently. We talked about politics in Paris. I'm going to solidify this today by responding to some emails. Have a very cool French YouTuber who's going to come on and talk to us about what's going on in France. Some of you do sometimes say things like, why do you only talk about America? We hate you. Death to America. We're coming for you. And we're like, whoa, but we're going to get some lovely non-American voices on here soon. But yeah, so that is that. Give me 1 second, guys. Just thinking, just talking, just working. Okay. I like how someone said, which headphones are those? There are headphones that I got from the old Wisecrack office when I was like, I don't have good headphones, and someone grabbed these out of an office and gave them to me. So that's where I'm at. Let's watch a little bit of this, and we'll see if anything interesting comes up that hasn't come up yet. Nerdist made a video.
Why are Hollywood writers going on strike?
It gets into some of the economics of it. So let's watch a little bit of this. And we're 12 minutes away from Colby Day coming on. So again, if you want to hear from a WGA screenwriter who's in the trenches right now, he's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So that's fun.
Hollywood writers going on strike. Welcome back to Nerdist News. I'm Dan Casey, and today we're taking a break from dissecting pop culture.
I don't know Dan Casey. I watch Nerdist videos sometimes. I think we follow each other on Twitter. I feel like we'd get along. I just look at this guy and I'm like, I feel like I get along with this guy. I'm not going to say why. I just feel like we get along.
To talk about the most important thing happening.
Someone said the audio is a bit high. I'll see if I can turn it. Will do anything if I turn the level down over here? I turned it down a little bit.
In the world of.
Cool. Thanks for letting us know, guys. Nathan Sampson says we need French language Wisecrack videos or subtitles so my parents can watch. That'd be bon.
Entertainment right now, the writers' strike. Now, as you may have heard, members of the Writers Guild of America, the labor union that represents some 11,500 writers of film and television, are officially on strike as of 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday morning.
Anyone in the chat's in a union?
This is the first writers' strike in 15 years, and it cocomes after 6 weeks of protracted negotiations with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers.
Moises, that's basically what I was saying, Moises, but I didn't want to say it, but I knew you'd get it. Also, just so we're here, please like the stream if you haven't already. It helps us a lot. Really appreciate it if you do it. Remember, these go up as VODs. You can leave comments, watch it later. You can share with people. Farrah Feet said, like this, like the strike in the stream, like both of those things. Thank you so much for your chat. Also, you know, you can be a member of the channel on YouTube if you want. People have been gifting memberships, which is very cool. Cheyenne Morrison, that's who it is. You guessed right. But yeah, you can be a member of the channel. It's a fun thing to do. You get some extras. I always see your chats. I know I always say this, we really are working on more emotes. We're just a really small team trying to do a lot of stuff. But also, there's the Patreon. If you're someone that has some money, you have $5 extra a month that you just have. You have $5 right now that you could burn and it would mean fucking nothing to you. If you have that, or if you have $10 that you could rip in half and you wouldn't feel shit, consider joining our Patreon. When you sign up for our Patreon, it's the way that you could give money basically directly to the channel. We get like 97% of it because Patreon isn't evil. And when you do that, you get videos early with no ads. You get on our Discord server. You get some extra audio and video content. We have one series, Philosophy Office Hours, where I answer questions and chop it up once a month, hopefully more soon. So just check it out if you want. Cool. People are shouting out unions. Of course, Julie is in a union. Everything about Julie is cool. So of course she would be in a union. Let's see. James is in a Soviet union. Cheyenne's in a teachers union. Hell yes. We love the teachers union. We love the teachers unions. So there you go. Okay, let's watch a little bit more of this.
More specifically, the AMPTP represented major studios and streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, NBC Universal, Paramount, and Sony.
Also, I think, Henry, it looks like Colby's in the waiting room. Is there a way that you can get him set up while we do this, while you guys are muted or something? I mean, I don't care if I hear you, but just, is that cool? Yeah, I'll go for this, but maybe, yeah, if he's here and ready to go, we can just get into it.
In its members, the WGA wrote, "Here's what all writers know. The companies have broken this business. They've taken so much from the very people, the writers, who have made them wealthy. But what they cannot take from us is each other, our solidarity, our mutual commitment to save ourselves and this profession that we love. We had hoped to do this through reasonable conversation. Now we will do it through struggle, for the sake of our present and..."
That's like a bar. That's like a bar, guys. We had hoped to do this through reasonable conversation. Now we will do it through struggle. Like, I mean, I guess you should have a good like statement if you are literally the writers union, but I still want to say, like, that's a bar.
And our future. We've been given no other choice. And perhaps writer Eric Galindo put it the best. If you're confused about the writer's strike, it's super basic. The studios want the option of having WGA writers to work for free or without an agreed upon weekly salary or even a day rate. And we actually want to get paid fairly for our work. While much of Hollywood deal-making is obfuscated and takes place behind closed doors, the WGA have been incredibly transparent about the proposals for which
all right, cool.
They're negotiating. As streaming networks to flourish, studios have devised new ways to devalue writing across all mediums by paying writers less and less. In a March 2023 memo titled "Writers Are Not Keeping Up," the WGA explained their position. The companies have used the transition to streaming to cut writer pay and separate writing from production, worsening working conditions for series writers at all levels. On TV staffs, more writers are working at minimum regardless of experience, often for fewer weeks or in mini rooms, while showrunners are left without a writing staff to complete the season. And while series budgets have soared over the past decade, median writer-producer pay has fallen. Now, between layoffs, shrinking salaries, the
Oh, awesome. What's up, Colby? Cool. Oh. It's paused now. Is it cool if we just get into it? Okay. Hey guys, Colby's here. We're gonna chat now. So we're gonna stop playing that video. You can go finish watching it on your own. It's on the Nerdist channel. It's called the Hollywood Writers Strike Explained. So thank you for hanging out. Hey Colby, you're here. Thank you so much for being here. It's very nice that you were willing to do this.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, anytime anybody wants to talk about labor unions fighting the man, sign me
Yeah.
up. Here I am.
Awesome. So maybe if you don't mind doing this, do you want to just introduce yourself and maybe tell everyone like, who you are, what sort of writing you do, what your deal is, and then
Yeah.
we can get into the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Colby Day. I'm a proud WGA member since 2016, which is when I started working in Hollywood. Before that, I was mainly a playwright back in New York. I have a movie that I wrote for Netflix called Spaceman that's going to be coming out later this year.
Hell yeah.
Date TBD, but that'll star Adam Sandler. It's directed by Johan Renck, who did Chernobyl. It's going to be a big, wild Netflix space movie.
That's incredibly exciting, by the way. And
Yes.
I know we have stuff to talk about, but everyone like have that on your radar. Be ready to watch that. And congrats, because that's really, really cool.
Please. It will be hard to miss. It will be the only movie in which Adam Sandler goes to space. So
He's kind of like everywhere else. It's about time he's been to space. So yeah.
I think every director should make a space movie at some point, and I think every actor should go to space at some point.
No
Let's
disagreement
get
there.
more of them. Yeah, let's get more.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So let's just start with this. We've been talking a little bit on the stream about, the conditions that led to the strike, what's been going on, but
Yes.
maybe you could describe from the perspective of a working writer in Hollywood, what it's sort of been like in, we could say the past few years, the past year or so, but what have the conditions been like that have led to something like this happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, overall, the job of being a writer in Hollywood is a pretty tenuous career, and I think there's a version of it that, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, in which once you started working, you were able to sort of build for yourself a sustainable, livable career and pay a mortgage. And I think with the continued sort of proliferation of streaming, especially just because the pay for streaming is lower, and the continued almost like Uberification of the business model, um, writers are really kind of jumping from job to job to job, and that idea of like building a career in which you move up has sort of disappeared, and you're sort of seeing writers repeat the same kind of job over and over, and sort of be pushed down by just sort of market forces as far as like, can we pay you less? Can we pay you for less time? Can you do this faster? Can you, like it just, everybody's gotten squeezed more and more. And so I think particularly for television writers, you're looking at an ecosystem in which, TV shows used to be 22, 26 episodes in a season, and now you're looking at shows that are 8 to 10 episodes. And if you're someone who's working weekly, that's a huge difference as far as like what is you're being paid in a year. And so rather than knowing, oh, I have a job for half the year, you're in a position where it's like, oh, I have a job for 2 months. And then what do I do after that? Who knows? And the amount of time between a season of television and the next has gone from, a few months because they used to run the whole year, to, well, you might wait a year, you might wait 2 years before a show is even renewed, at which point you've had to work,
Yeah.
like eight other jobs. And so it just is this ecosystem where I think everybody really feels like they're on a treadmill, and everybody really feels like desperately seeking the next job, even while they're starting the current job.
Yeah. And then if you can say a little bit about how things have maybe changed, and I'm sure there's lots of overlap between, let's say, the TV writing model and the film screenwriting model, because I think there's a sense in
Yeah.
which some people imagine, or not imagine, but there's, have been periods where one would write a screenplay and could get paid a pretty handsome sum for said screenplay, and maybe do that every, 18 months or a couple of years and have a decent living off that. So how has that kind of model been shifting in recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the movie Spaceman that I wrote that will be coming out on Netflix. I have a movie that I wrote that is finishing production currently, which I'm not allowed to be writing on anymore, but there's, they're going to try their best. And both of those movies are for streaming. And the way
Mhm.
that if you write a movie for streaming, you get paid upfront and that's it. See you later. Whereas if you wrote a theatrical film 10, 15 years ago, you'd be paid to write the movie, but then you'd be paid when the movie went to HBO, and then you'd be paid when the movie went to cable, and then you'd be paid when the movie went to
Yeah.
DVD. And so those big lump sums, which sound like a lot, you do have to calculate the odds of writing and making a movie. It does come once every 18 months, once every 2 years, 3 years. So those broken out windows as far as when you have an opportunity to get paid are the things that make it a sustainable career, because you might not write a movie and sell a movie every year. That just isn't a feasible reality. And so the ecosystem has become such that like you get paid once when you make the movie, and there are residuals for streaming currently. That was what the 2007, 2008 guild strike was about. But they're so much lower than what you used to make on something going to cable or something going to DVD, that you just are stuck with like, you can't count on any of that stuff helping you to pay for the rest of your life. So you really have to sell a movie over and over and over just to know like, oh, okay, I can pay my rent for this year. And selling a movie is hard. You know, it is the lottery, and it's not something you can know you're going to do every year. So the pressure is really on, as far as like you really need to constantly know what your next job is, in this way that it's like one of the most unpredictable industries in the world in the first place. So the idea of like, oh, now I have to know what I'm doing in a year, it just isn't even possible as the writer.
Yeah, and it does sound like that sort of like gig economy type of constant anxiety where one can never feel like their income or their career is certain. So you're constantly anxious about the next job, the next gig, the next script, which of course sucks, but just has to be a horrible way to live at like a mental health level, and a weird existence in the world to kind of know that maybe the good thing happens and you get a lot of money in 2 months, maybe it doesn't, and you're trying desperately to find a part-time job.
I think that it's really easy to look at the profession of being a writer as something that could seem like it's coming from a gilded, privileged ivory tower place. But when you start to break down the fact that your payment comes when you are paid to write a movie, and you might only be paid to write a movie every couple years, you have to then spread that income out for 18 months, 24 months, 36 months. And so even though the dollar amount can look high, you're
Yeah.
looking at something that like, even if you got paid $250,000, right? You're not going to make that every year. So you start
Yeah.
to spread that out over 5 years, and then you're making $50,000 a year. And that's like just enough to be like, oh, I know I have to get another job soon. And that's really a best case scenario, to make a ton of money, right? But it really starts to amortize and become something where it's just like, oh, you really do constantly have to know what the next job is.
Yeah.
Which,
Wow.
is not unique to writers. This is the position that everybody in labor is in right now, is I don't know what's next, and I feel really strapped. And I think that that's just true of writers as well. And we're just in a moment where the union gets to take a stand about that and try to carve out at least a livable situation for its members.
Yeah, I mean, something you said reminds me of earlier in our stream today. Someone, and I think it's like a fair question in the chat, said something to the effect of like, why should we care this much about, let's say, like writers in Hollywood, when
Yeah.
maybe people don't seem to get this active on social media about Rust Belt workers or industrial labor
Totally.
and stuff. But to which, I think the response we had for that is like, of course, but we should think that way about all these things. So hopefully a strike like this and the attention it's able to get because the people involved in the strike are media adjacent, work in media, can be a thing that reminds us this gigification of all these industries, and the undermining of labor at so many levels is happening across the board, whether you are writing movies about Adam Sandler in space, or building auto parts in a factory in Ohio.
It's not unique to the writers.
Yeah.
It's a situation that is true everywhere, which is that we have some of the biggest, wealthiest corporations ever out there trying to squeeze every penny out of everybody who works for them. And
Yeah.
that's true of the auto worker, that's true in the Rust Belt, and it's true of people who work in film and TV, which overall is not a particularly glamorous job. It is if you are a movie star, but there are a lot of very normal people just here busting their ass to try to
Yeah.
make a thing, showing up in the middle of the night, working long hours in the rain. And people in media have a larger platform generally, and so they get more press. But I think that we should be paying attention to this equally for workers everywhere. Is that these corporations are designed to not care about the employees, and that is something that has to change. We have to fight against.
Well, then let me ask you this in particular, Colby. What are some of the demands that you think, or at least for you, that are really important that the WGA is making right now? What are the changes that the union's advocating for, that you think are the most urgent, or the most forceful, or however you want to put it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's usually on the table, which is on the table this time, is just, can you increase pay to match inflation? I mean, when you look at the actual pay that writers are getting, it's decreased compared to inflation over the last 5 years. So everybody's pay is just down. So that is just like base level, can people survive? But more urgently is, can we carve out larger payments for things that are done for the internet, things that are done for streaming? In 2007 and 2008, those were all considered new media, and it was sort of a gamble as far as like, well, we'll see if this makes us any money or not. And the WGA accepted, significantly less money for work done for the internet than work done for theatrical and television. And that just is how these companies make money today. So the share that they're paying on that stuff just isn't representative of what that stuff is worth. And it is the stuff that really has made being a writer unsustainable, is you just are paid upfront and you're not earning any money off of the stuff that you've made. And they're going to continue to earn money off of it forever. So fundamentally, to just pay the people for the work that you're exploiting for years, I think is the thing that helps us carve out like a survivable life. And then it sounds crazy. And 9 months ago, this was brought to the table for the Guild, and I thought it was ludicrous. But to fight against AI taking jobs from writers is a genuine, real concern at this point. That is part of the negotiation, is trying to keep studios from using AI to write movies.
Yeah. So now that you bring that up, would you mind saying a little bit more about that? Because I know we all think about AI. We at Wisecrack recently let ChatGPT write a video for us to see how it would do. It did an okay job. And then I think it was like a week or two ago, the Russo brothers made a statement about how AI is the future of movies, which is great. So, I mean, how do you perceive the threat of AI to your profession and your creative work?
I don't. I think that AI is threatening in that it isn't creating anything. It's remixing the stuff you've given it previously. And so what you're stuck with when you're asking AI to make art is, facsimiles and copies of the stuff that people have made previously. So you're not getting art. Like fundamentally, if you want to see art has to be made by a human who has a point of view. So to me, it's a weird thing to be like, yeah, I want to watch something that a computer created. But from a practical standpoint, it also is just an existential threat to say, well, we don't need humans to do work. We can outsource that to a computer. And, I think we're in a position globally where we have to kind of reckon with like, okay, if we could give this job to a computer, what are we all here for? What do we want humans to be doing? Do we want art to be made by computers? Do we want our jobs to be taken by computers? Do we want the executives to be replaced by AI? You know, AI can do just as much scheduling and call maintenance
Yes.
and market analysis as an executive could too. So we could replace us all with AI, and then what do we want? So
Yeah.
it just is it just seems to me like a very strange argument to make of like, there are so many things that you could automate that would be beneficial for people, and to decide to automate the art we consume and the way that we look at the world and the questions we're asking ourselves about existence just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. So
No,
I
I mean
think
it's the
I think
curse
we
of
have
like
to keep it from happening. It's
yeah.
not going to be good for us.
Well, that's why it's so terrible. You know, whenever you read economists and political theorists from 50 years ago talking about automation, it's like this is going to be so great. We can automate all these things that we don't need to do to free up human time and creativity and all this. But of course, it's just being turned into a tool to exploit more people and you know consolidate more wealth at the top. And again, I think in another way you can see points of very clear solidarity and connectivity between you know Hollywood and other industries. Like
Yeah.
it's the same thing, and the people that are getting screwed over by automation in these senses are people that are on the bottom half of you know who's getting paid the most. So it's wild
Yes.
to see.
And I
And
actually
then
think the
yeah.
thing you could automate the easiest is the person at the top. But we're
Oh
not going
yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, too, that's one of the issues at stake is the WGA asking for some type of explicit regulation around the use of AI. And
Yeah,
the
so the
response to that was sort of nah.
The response to that was we will hold a once annual meeting about the future of technology in the business.
Just a meeting. Sorry, I laugh because it's absurd, not because it's funny that those are the reactions that you guys are. And I saw for a few of the reactions to things was sort of like boiled down to like, we'll have a chat about it as you all ask for real like material commitments.
Yeah, so one of the other big commitments that the WGA has asked for is to, when you're employing a feature writer, and this affects me probably more than the TV people, to require a second step on a project. And what that means is like, normally when you're hired to write a movie, you turn it in and they say, hey, this works, this doesn't work, we'd love you to change this. And what has happened over the years is they've started to say, okay, well, we'll pay you to do one step, which is write the movie, and that's it. And then we'll ask you to do a little bit more, and we won't pay you for that second part. We're just going to ask. And you can say no. You could say no, but it would be really great if you said yes. So part of what the WGA has asked for is just like, look, can you just guarantee that there will be two steps to writing a movie? Because nobody has ever turned in a movie and the studio's like, perfect, we love it, don't change anything. Like that's just not how creativity works. And that request was met with, we will have meetings with our executives to tell them that free work is bad.
Oh man, that really sucks. So just
which as though they don't know this.
Yeah. Well, I guess one last big question I'll ask you, and in the meantime, if anyone in the chat has questions for Colby, post them there. I'll try to get some of them. A thing that's come up a few times, and I've seen people asking on Twitter as well, for folks who you know, aren't in LA or New York and able to get on a picket line or support in that way. You know, what are ways that people who love the work that people like you do and want to show solidarity, what are things people can do right now?
Yeah, the WGA explicitly has asked, you know, can you share what we're talking about? Can you follow the Writers Guild of America East and West online, whether that's Instagram or Twitter? They have a social media toolkit that people can grab that's at WGA Contract 2023. If you just Google that, it'll take you there.
Yeah,
with
and
some
we'll grab the
information.
link and post that before this is over.
Short of that, I think being aware that, you know, a fight for workers is a fight against people trying to take advantage of all of us. the writers aren't any different from everybody else who just wants to be able to like pay their rent.
Yeah.
And I think it really easily becomes a fight of between the working class and the middle class. And I think that that is all a distraction from the fact that we have CEOs of companies making too much money, and
Yes.
they should be giving it to the rest of us.
And it's always that question when we have this sort of manufactured fight between the working class and the middle class. It's like, who benefits? Neither of those groups, so always important to remember that. Not a question, but Skylar in the chat says, thanks for working so hard on behalf of the WGA and the pre-WGA folks. And then Maeve in the chat asks, how would the prohibition of AI be enforced? So I don't know if you have any ideas about that, but
Yeah, once you get into the actual details of the agreement, I'm not on the negotiating committee. I'm just a member, so I'm not privy to all the information. But basically, the way that the deal works with the AMPTP is they agree to not use AI to generate material, period. So it would be you can't have AI write a movie at any point. You can't have it write an outline. You can't have it fix a thing. No, is the proposal on the table.
Yeah.
And that proposal has been met with, we'll talk about it in a year.
Okay. I know. So this is a related question. Carson asked, question for Colby. Do you think there's any way that AI can benefit writers? Say generating ideas, helping with writer's block. Is that even ethical? So do you think there's any positive use of AI for the working writer?
The ethics of AI are really complicated, and I
Yeah.
don't
I don't
know
want to
what
put that on you to
I
solve
don't
that
know
one.
what I think. I think that AI is a good generative tool, and I think it is a good tool for editing. I think it's a good tool for like I've done the like, can you spit out 20 titles of something? And then you get 20 titles that don't really work, but at least then your brain can ping pong that around. I think AI is a genie that we've already let out of the bottle, and there's no stopping it. It's a tool that we have to reckon with what we think is right and wrong about using and where we can and should use it. I don't feel like making the world harder for us is a reasonable position to take. So I think we need to decide what's a fair and ethical use of this thing, because it is useful. It just is, a totally new territory that we don't understand yet.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And of course, like I at least would never want to say that it's like bad altogether and can't be used as a tool, but it's that thing is it uses as a tool to like serve and support the creative interest of human beings, or is it used as something to supplant the work of human beings? So there you go. I think we have one more question for you. Okay, this is contentious, but I'm going to ask it. Someone says, could you argue that this is the fault of the WGA in the first place by accepting less money for streaming content?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think yes. I think, every contract negotiation is, they come every 3 years, and they are partially about trying to protect the future, and they're partially about trying to correct the mistakes that have been previously made.
Yeah.
I think that in 2007 and 2008, it just was not clear what this landscape would look like. And I think that the agreement made was just not correct. None of us could have predicted that that's true, but I think that that's true. And I think when you look at unions overall, they've always been there to try to correct and protect on the behalf of the workers, and they're the reason we have a weekend. They're the reason we have a 40-hour work week. In TV, they're the reason why, writers get residuals on anything they write at all. That didn't used to be true. There's no way that it has to be. And we get to decide anytime we negotiate a contract, how do we want it to be? And the way that we want it to be is more equitable for the internet. So we can do that. But yeah, I think it was a mistake.
Yeah. Well, and for the really young folks in the chat or watching this, just know that internet video in 2007 was like slowly loading something on a real-time player. And like there was, early like online comedy videos that were so brutal. And I don't think anyone at that point thought that in less than a decade, that would be the primary mechanism by which we would consume, studio
All
produced
media.
content. Yeah. So, I have empathy for people in 2007 that were like, yeah, sure, we'll get a little bit of money for this. It was a big deal. Yeah.
2007 internet was a QuickTime video that a comedy sketch group put up on their website, and so
Yeah.
the idea of like, well, we should protect that was kind of crazy at the time. So it just, things change and you have to sort of renegotiate, and that's part of being in a union, is you get to renegotiate.
Yeah. Well, awesome. And you're just getting a lot of love in the chat. People are loving these answers and showing support. So, well, thank you so much for coming through and talking about this, especially on such short notice. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
blast.
And
Yeah.
anything else? So, I mean, I'm happy to do this. So everyone should be on the lookout, for your movie coming out.
Please.
Everyone can follow you on Twitter. Is it that Colby Day on Twitter?
It's the Colby Day.
The Colby
Yeah.
Day. Sorry, the Colby
That's
Day.
okay.
Follow on Twitter, and then, like you said, there are a lot of resources so people can follow the WGA accounts to get a sense of like what they can do, learn what's going on, support in that way. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for talking about this. I think it gets really murky and confusing,
Yeah.
and like, why should I care about this? But
Yes.
it seems silly that our shows will come out later and we have to be worried about that. But like, at the end of the day, these companies are too big, and part of having labor unions is to try to protect regular people, and that's what this is about. So we're
Hear,
just
hear.
trying to like have a livable life, and I think that's true of most people in America right now. And I hope that one union fighting can maybe get some other unions to join in and also fight.
Full support and solidarity to everything you just said, Colby. Thank you
Right
so
on.
much.
Thanks, guys. It really great to get to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Cool. And yeah, thanks for sharing your love for Colby in the chat. Definitely follow him on Twitter. Follow the resources he mentioned there. And I think a couple questions might have come through after wrapping up. So sorry if I didn't get to those, everyone. But something I think is really important that came up there in what Colby was saying is this idea that, and I saw, and to be clear, I said in the chat, don't be a dick. I don't know what was going on. It seemed like there was a little vibe. So I just wanted to check on you guys because I love you so much. But I think one of the really important takeaways there is this idea that even if you are not a part of the specific type of labor that people in the WGA are, they are fighting and negotiating for things that can have a positive effect on other industries and other unions, right? For example, if the WGA is able to organize and sort of ratify some strict protections around AI, that's going to set a precedent that's going to make it hopefully easier and more kind of in the zeitgeist for other industries to do the same. Because friends, it's coming for us all. So I think it's just important to remember that. And I think that like most people, I'm sure, in Colby's position in the WGA might even acknowledge that, like, yes, in the past, there probably hasn't been enough solidarity between, the media industries and the industrial industries, you know what I mean? But, let's change that, And I do think there's this idea too. And I am someone who in my life at various points has shat upon people from different industries for different ways. But like as someone who's bounced around and had a few different jobs, worked in different industries in my life, working is working, guys. And it's not like when there's these sort of battles between different types of work and labor, the only ones that benefit are the guys at the top. And here's the thing, it's the same guys at the top of media and of the auto industry and of the weapons industry and of the finance industry. It's the same dudes. So we're all trying to get money from the same guys. So just important to remember. But again, we're not political at Wisecrack. We don't have any politics. We don't have any discernible values. All we care about is empathy and good vibes. That's all we care about. So guys, let's see. Yeah, someone said, I feel like people have thoughts like, well, if I suffered and got through it, you can too. But why should we want others to suffer? Yeah, so this comment from KI5262, which sounds like a good robot name. We see this thing with like student loan forgiveness, right? When when it looked like until it got ruined, we're going to have some student loan forgiveness in America, people were just like, why the fuck should these people get their loans forgiven when I paid mine? And it's just like, why can't your attitude be like, oh man, it sucked that I had to do this thing, so I am glad that others will not have to do that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't know why we can't just feel like that. Because something sucks for you doesn't mean it should suck for someone else. To get back to masculinity and the toxic tendency of physical violence, I don't know. I've been punched in my face in my life. I don't want other people to get punched in the face. You want to know why? Because it sucks. Feels bad. Feels way worse than you think it's going to feel too. And it's like that idea that I've had to navigate toxic masculinity and violent culture in my life, so others should have to. No, guys. Rising tide, et cetera, et cetera. Someone said very neoliberal take. Was it my neoliberal take? Did I just say something neoliberal, Henry? I don't think I did.
I was monitoring the Discord, but there was nothing that made my ears twitch. Is it because
Yeah.
you're showing solidarity across job types? I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying like I don't know. I almost said something crazy. I'm just curious if someone
Like the neoliberal solution is to liberate like the market from politics. It would be to say like stop unionizing and just let the companies be nice to you, which is absurd.
Yeah. Empathy's not neoliberal. Neoliberal's not empathetic at all. Are you effing kidding me, guys? Neoliberalism isn't like, oh, work is work. Someone said, you listen to Andrew Tate, Michael? I do not. And I'm going to be honest with you. I would rather listen to the sound of all of my ancestors, past and future, dying horrifically over and over on a loop with narration by Kid Rock than 3 seconds of anything Andrew Tate has to say. I don't mean that to be mean to the person who asked me that. I'm just saying that is truly how I feel about listening to that person. Oh yeah, sorry. Carla said, yeah, saying they should get punched is a neoliberal take. Awesome. Well, great guys. This has been a really fun stream today. I'm glad we all got to think about some of this stuff together. Really good chat today, guys. Like really, really good chat. Good job by you. You're all great. It's been really fun, and it's been good to see some fun debate and interaction. And listen, guys, sometimes in the debate, we're going to get a little too spicy. I get a little spicy sometimes. You get a little spicy. But let's remember that most of us who are here, we're just trying. We're just trying our best. So I appreciate the spirit of debate, but also the spirit of empathy and understanding we're seeing in the chat. Someone asked if I've seen Hello Tomorrow on Apple TV. No, but I will look into it. So in the meantime, we will see you next week. And we have some more guests coming down the pike, and I'm really excited about it. But again, we want to give a special shout out to Colby Day, to all the writers from the WGA. We did not reach 666 today, so no Satan call out today. But everyone, yeah, please, there's a link in the chat that Henry's posting for the WGA contract that we could look into.
That'll also be on the Discord.
Yeah. Melodella says I need to be more spicy. I'm going to fill my body with gochujang for the next stream. I'll put sriracha in my eyes. But great time today, guys. Really appreciate you as always. Consider being a member. Consider joining the Patreon. But in the meantime, continue thinking, being kind, valuing empathy, things of that nature. And check out the video tomorrow. I think you're going to like it. It's on Why Work Kind of Sucks. Logan, who's a king, says ride or die. We'll see you all soon. From Henry, from Michael, shout out to our special guest, Colby Day. We will see you next week right here on Wisecrack Live.
See you next week, y'all. Solidarity forever.